public opinion on Israel has changed drastically over the last couple of years, thank God. But in Washington, it's a little bit slower. And so this week, Fox News still seem to be on board 100% for endless aid going to the Israeli military, no matter what they do. To which I say, of course. But you're going to see some serious, heavy propaganda for Israel by a member of the Trump family. Interesting. John, tell us about it.
Yeah, let's take a look actually at this clip featuring Lara Trump.
The scary part of all of this is that the argument you're hearing right now out of DC is, oh, we don't want to give financial aid in the same way to Israel. But what's happened is this sentiment is spreading like a virus, and it's not just about financial aid. Marcus, to your point, it's about anti-Semitism. And we've seen so much of this take hold and take root in our country in really frightening ways. I mean, you talk to Jewish New Yorkers, they're terrified to walk down the street with a star emblem on their necklace, or to wear a yarmulke, or to show who they truly are. That's not America. What are we doing? Don't forget that it was 85 years ago this sentiment spread around the world. Look at what happened in Nazi Germany. It's not that far off to think that we're heading down a path that is frighteningly close to what happened there. So while you have these people saying, oh, this is about financial aid, it is so much bigger than that. You're right, they don't know why they're championing Palestine. They think that's part of the bandwagon they're supposed to be on because all the people on TikTok and social media told them to go that way. This is something that we need to take seriously. Israel, being our closest Middle Eastern ally, has allowed for stability in the world.
So there's a lot going on in that clip that I find to be amazing. She ends with the idea that Israel has created stability. I honestly can't even tell you how many countries they bombed in the last year in the region. How many countries, they've invaded multiple areas in the past couple of years. I guess that's stability to Lara Trump. But the bigger part of that is the sneering condescension towards anyone that doesn't agree with her, which I'm glad is ladled all over her argument, because what Lara Trump just said will win over no one that doesn't already agree with her. It is a literal rhetorical impossibility. So she says, if you're an independent, a Republican, that watched a genocide in front of you, 20,000+ kids murdered, you think you have a problem with that, but you're a stupid peasant sheep, okay? The only reason you think you have a problem with that is because you were told to on TikTok. And by the way, as you're seeing in that clip and as you'll see in these others, it's 100% 24/7 propaganda to support the genocide from Fox News. And meanwhile, she's telling you that it's you're not an independent thinker unless you agree with her. It's utterly ridiculous. So anyway, look, we have Lara Trump. We have another example actually from Fox and Friends. This is a response to JD Vance. So JD Vance went on Joe Rogan's program and implied a little bit of an issue with some of the, you wanna jump in first before we get to JD Vance?
Yeah, so those are interesting clips. Then we have one from CNN too. But first off, I just want you to remember that 57% of Republicans under the age of 50 have an unfavorable view of Israel and believe that we should not fund them anymore. So she just called 57% of her own party under the age of 50 anti-Semites, and that their ideas are spreading like a virus. About their own, I mean, why don't you just call them deplorables while you're at it?
Yeah.
So, because they don't serve any party, these people that are controlled by Israel, including the Trumps. They #1 donor to Joe Biden, #1 donor to Donald Trump. And guess what? Oh, look at that. They happen to agree. Whatever Israel wants, including disastrous wars, they're gonna get them. They want funding for a genocide. Biden will give it to them. Trump will give it to them. And if you object, you're a virus and an anti-Semite. And by the way, you remember how offended Republicans were at the talk of calling them fascists, right? And here's Lara Trump, a member of the Trump family, saying that if you don't want to give money to Israel, you're just like the Nazis in Germany.
Literally.
She literally said that.
If you do not give this $3.3 billion, this is startlingly close to starting up the concentration camps.
Yeah, and I mean, and every part of it, again, if you're like 98 years old and you're watching Fox News, you probably believe all that. And to be fair to you, that's the propaganda you heard on all of cable news your whole life, right? And all of mainstream media. But for everyone else, the idea that Jews are not safe in New York and they're cowering and worried about are you insane? Okay, Jews are perfectly fine in New York. It's one of the largest Jewish cities in the world. It's part of what makes it so vibrant and awesome, and they are a great part of the community. And by the way, huge voters of Mamdani, and support Mamdani more than they support Netanyahu. So what she's saying doesn't even apply to Jewish Americans. It's just a fantasy made up and demagoguery made up by their funders, the people who gave the Trumps money, which is the Israelis, including the Adelson family.
100%. Yeah, no, if some random Jewish person in New York is scared to walk down a city street, it's probably because ICE is murdering people every day. And she doesn't have a problem with that. Also, she doesn't mind the massive warehouse concentration camps that are being built right now to process migrants. She has no problem with that. Also, it's basically doing a Nazism. If you don't provide this foreign aid, you guys spent all last year telling us we don't owe anyone anything when it comes to foreign aid. And so it's never again here, but I guess, like, what if it's like aid to stabilize Rwanda? What if it's like starvation in Ethiopia? What if it's an Ebola outbreak in the Congo? Can it not be never again for that? Because you loved cutting all of that aid literally less than 1 year ago.
You've got to make sure you're getting your news from a range of sources that help you see the real story, not some biased version of the truth. That's why we've been relying on our partners over at Ground News. They're a small independent team who built an app and website that gathers news from across the political spectrum so you can compare coverage on any issue with data on each source's political bias, credibility, and even ownership. I found this headline through Ground News, and I think it's worth digging into. 2 January 6 police officers sue Trump to block $1.8 billion lawfare fund. Now, this is a pretty loaded headline, and when I look at it on Ground News, I can understand the story better than I can from the headline alone. Ground News shows me that over 300 sources covered this particular story, with only 12% of that coverage coming from right-leaning sources. Now, I can also see the distinct differences in how the left and the right frame this story. For example, this high factuality source on the left is calling this a $1.8 billion slush fund for the insurrectionists on January 6th, while this right-leaning mixed factuality source is calling this a lawfare victims fund. Same story, 2 completely different implications, but I wouldn't have that context without Ground News. We have a president who plays fast and loose with the facts, and too much of the media, unfortunately, does the same. But I think Ground News is solving that issue, and it's one we've talked about a lot on this channel. The overload, distraction, the missing context that's skewing our perspective of the news. So if you're tired of the chaos, we've got 40% off their Vantage plan. Just go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code. I really think it's worth checking out.
Anyway, like I said, we do have Fox and Friends. So JD Vance goes on the Joe Rogan's show, and he mentions that there are these campaigns to, change public opinion, influence people, put pressure on politicians, and all of that. He doesn't really go that far in it. He just acknowledges that, and Fox and Friends, as you'll see, was not having it.
I'm kind of disappointed in the vice president. Me, I am not what you would call it hawk. I'm pretty, but I understand what the defense of the country means and our greatest ally means. Part of the comments that concerned me wasn't even so much of that one, is that he said that he found himself to be a moderate on the issue with Israel. That's not what the president stands for. The president made it very clear that it's our closest ally and that we will work with them. Now, there are some times where the president says that he needs to call Bibi off a little bit, that he wants to go a little further than the president is comfortable with, because he's balancing what's happening in the Arab world and what's happening with Israel as well. But to say that there are people that are on air that are trying to pressure the administration some way in the advancement of Israel and not our own country's interests, that is categorically false.
I think I got what he was saying at the end there. What do you think of that?
Okay, first of all, that was hilarious. To say that there are people on air that are trying to pressure you to support Israel, like me, is categorically false. Brother, you're doing it. You're doing it right now. Let alone the fact that Time magazine story that JD Vance quoted while he's on the Rogan is real. We covered it on this show, and it has indisputable facts. And by the way, good job on Brad Parscale's part in at least following the law in one instance. He registered as a foreign agent of Israel, and he gets paid about $1.5 million a month, and then he distributes that money I'm sure he keeps a good chunk of it. But to influencers, and by the way, he's the chief strategy officer of Salem Networks. Salem Networks has all the right-wing hosts, including Scott Jennings. So everybody gets rich, everybody gets money from Israel. That is a literal fact. And then guys like, what's his name, Lawrence Jones? Lawrence Jones is supposed to come out here and be like a pathetic servant of Israel. And that's what he is. Everybody on Fox News is a pathetic servant of Israel. Every single one of them, okay? That's why they all grovel to Israel. Now, is that fair? No, Cenk, come on. Like, they have ideological beliefs, right? Like, for example, Lawrence Jones is what you would call not a hawk. I mean, he's been in favor of every single war we've gone into, okay? But when elections come around, he says he's not in favor of them. Afterwards, he says he's totally in favor of them. So not exactly a hawk. Remember, only a hawk in reality, but when I'm lying to you. So is it about wars? No, it's not about wars, because he said he was anti-war, and now he's pro-war, right? And he even criticized JD Vance for being a moderate on Israel. So apparently he wants them to be a radical on Israel. If you're not radically pleasuring Israel, Lawrence is upset with you because he already had to do that and his knees are scuffed.
Oh my God.
So he's really like, oh, how come your knees aren't scuffed as mine? Okay, he's only a moderate on Israel. So guys, none of the policies matter, and who's in charge doesn't matter, Biden or Trump. The only thing that matters is frickin' Israel. Why? Because they're getting paid by them. That's why. It's not complicated. And who is the one trying to confuse you? The media, who's getting paid by Israel, comes on the air and goes, oh, saying that we're getting paid by Israel, while true, is anti-Semitic and you should be canceled for it. And you should never be allowed on air because Israel doesn't allow it. Now, when I say Israel, I want to be clear. People who support Israel, including one of the most radical Zionists of our entire lifetimes, Rupert Murdoch, who is every single media organization he owns has always been 200% in favor of Israel and all their war crimes and their genocides and their wars. Murdoch is an absolute monster, and he runs and pays little bitches like Lawrence Jones. And by the way, earlier Brian killed me too. He's like, oh, this is wrong, JD Vance. Wait, no, I thought you guys loved JD Vance. I thought you guys were diehard Republicans. Oh, when it comes to Republicans or Israel, oh, daddy who pays your bills told you to get on your knees for Israel. So Brian right there, Lawrence right there, okay, humiliating. Keep doing it, keep doing it. Every time you do it, we're gonna come out here and tell people how you're on your goddamn knees and how you look like a pathetic servant of a foreign country. All right, we got more?
Yeah. Sure, I'm not very familiar with him, but I do know Harris Faulkner is supposed to be like one of their like straight news people.
Yeah.
This isn't like their commentariat. This is a straight news person, Harris Faulkner. And I think, hopefully just for today at least, this is the most over the top one of their people will go. Take a look.
We promise never again, and I know it's perhaps outside the decades of life for some of those who are leaning in a direction toward heavy anti-Semitism. But you could just know history. It doesn't really matter your age. You could just read it. We made that promise to protect them. We went to war to do that for Jews all around the world.
She is a straight news person, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills or something. Israel leveled Gaza, okay? They leveled Gaza and invaded Lebanon and started a war with Iran and bombed multiple other countries in the region. I think they're doing okay with their military. It's not like they're defending the walls with spears from wolves or something. They're exerting influence over the entire region. Why are you presenting them as desperately needing whatever aid we can provide to them? They have a very well qualified and competent military. They are not going to crumble if $3 billion is not provided to them this week.
Yeah, so first off, we said never again, and Israel is committing a genocide again. So under that philosophy, you'd be on our side. But she redefines never again to, no, never again bother anyone Jewish or Israeli. I mean, Israelis are allowed to murder anyone they like. They're allowed to murder 23,000 children, incinerate them alive. burn them alive with their 2,000-pound bombs. That you could do again and again and again, since Harris Faulkner is a paid propagandist for Israel. She will lie to you and get you to try to support a genocide because she's a deeply immoral person and super racist against Palestinians and a giant bigot against Muslims. So if you murder Muslim children, she'll celebrate it and go, of course you should murder them. Never again should you slightly bother an Israeli. That's what never again means. No, it means genocide against anyone. And then, we owe them because we saved them from the Holocaust. Wait, why would we owe them if we saved them from the Holocaust? So I had somebody on here who was Albanian, and he was talking about how much Albanians, Bosnians, people from Kosovo, et cetera, love America. So for example, we saved Bosnians from a genocide. And look, things are complicated, but at the end we came in and we did that. Same thing with the Holocaust. I wish we'd gone in earlier and saved a lot more people, but we came in at the end and helped. By the way, the Soviet Union was a huge part of saving people from the Holocaust. So, and all the Allied forces were. So that's a beautiful thing, right? So do you see the Bosnians coming and going, you owe us! Since you saved us from a genocide, you owe us forever, okay? And you're all anti-Bosnian if you don't give me money, okay? No, you never see that. You know what the Bosnians say? Oh my God, thank you so much. We appreciate what you've done. But we are told, no, since you saved us from a Holocaust, you owe us for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
What is that? How come, wait, why do you owe us? Why don't you owe us? And by the way, I asked that question on social media, and you know what? I mean, look, my account, to be fair, is filled with radical Zionists. These are not normal people. They're not Jewish Americans. Like some of them might be, but that's not the classification that matters. Because most Jewish Americans are not in this category at all. But these radical Zionists, you know what their answer was? No, you didn't come in quick enough, so we hate America, and America does owe us. Oh, okay. So I didn't understand why Netanyahu said America was Rome and that he was promoting a book called The Jews versus Rome. And I'm like, why are we your enemy? What did we ever do? But apparently, according to some radical Zionists, they think since we didn't go in early enough that we're the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's why that's part of why they're thrilled to infiltrate us, take over 300 billion from us, use up our entire military for the 7 wars that they launched, and that's the number, 7 wars, and we're forced to do all 7 wars because some of them hate us for these insane reasons. And then Murdoch puts out a bunch of servants like Harris Faulkner to purposely lie to you and to get you to hate Muslims so that you'll pay for even more genocide.
Yeah, look, if some people in the Israeli government want to hate America because of our foreign policy, get in line. I get it. You're allowed to do that. That doesn't mean that you're entitled to hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever. And I just think, I know that this is always treated as such a special thing that you're not supposed to have any thoughts about, you can't express any opposition to, but we are actually being consistent. How many tens of millions of people died in Russia in World War II, okay? And helped us at the end, but tens of millions died. Putin doesn't get to take over Ukraine. We're fighting against that. When he comes in and he kills a bunch of civilians and he carts off women and children or whatever, we say no and we fight that. It doesn't matter if Russia suffered heavily in past history or whatever. We're opposing that because what's being done is wrong. And we should use the influence and the power we have to stop it. It has nothing to do, I don't care what the religion of the Russian soldiers is. Okay, they can't do that. And the same thing when it comes to this. Lara Trump is like, it's not about the aid, it's anti-Semitism. I can't speak for everyone, but I will say, as an atheist, I don't want to provide 2,000-pound bombs to Jewish people serving in the Israeli military or government, or Christians serving in the Israeli military or government. If you're an atheist, totally secular person in the IDF, I don't want to send you any bombs to drop on Gaza either. It has nothing to do with the religion, it's what's being done with the aid. And if we do not have the right to set terms on billions of dollars endlessly given, then what rights do we have over our tax dollars?
Yeah, all right, look, 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the Netanyahu government. But if you watch Fox News, the great majority of Jews in America are anti-Semites. They're not even trying to make sense. This is just overt propaganda, but I don't want you to get it wrong. It's not just Fox News, it's all of our mainstream media. So on CNN, Dana Bash did a segment about why the Democrats, half the Democrats voted to cut funding to Israel, and they explained the voters are angry, and I was like, oh, I think we're gonna go through a 2-minute segment without some sort of, weirdo lie on behalf of Israel. Well, I was wrong, so let's watch what happened instead.
A lot of Democrats are saying, we were okay with Israel responding after October 7th. We were okay with them taking on Hamas. We were not okay with them starving kids in Gaza. And we do not believe that more of our tax dollars that should be spent here should be going over to fund Netanyahu's wars.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. It's a very complicated issue and a lot of information that's not necessarily trickling down. I mean, there was just a UN report that said that Palestinian leaders in some ways were responsible for the starvation. It's all bad.
Oh yeah, it is all bad.
It is all bad.
So the Palestinians starved themselves. That's what we find out on CNN. So, remember, you should always blame the victims. That's like somebody coming down from the South during Jim Crow and saying, hey, we're being lynched down there. And Dana Bash going, well, it's a little complicated. I mean, that's what you say, but aren't you really at fault? Maybe you were lynching yourselves. That's exactly what it's like. They starved children to death. And the Palestinians didn't do it to themselves. The Israelis did it, but Dana Bash lies to you every single day to get you to believe that the people that were doing the starving of children are the good guys, and the children who were starved are terrorists. The Muslim terrorist. Israel had to do it. It's a complicated question. It's a super complicated one. And as Golda Meir said, which I'm sure Dana Bash loves, she said, we'll never forgive the Palestinians, former Prime Minister of Israel, will never forgive the Palestinians for making us kill their kids. And that's the kind of propaganda, as if that's a normal, non-insane, non-fascist thing to say, okay? And that kind of propaganda has been all over our media my entire life. Constant propaganda about how the terrorists of Israel are the good guys. And when they do genocide and when they do ethnic cleansing over and over and over again, and they brutalize Muslims, that's a wonderful thing. And if a Muslim ever fights back, oh, they're evil, and you should bomb their cities and their homes and kill their kids. That's what Dana Bash says. That's what Fox News says. That's what our disgusting corporate media says, all serving radical Zionists. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.